Welcome to episode 4 of the Leadership in the Line of Fire podcast. Today's episode is all about what, in my opinion, makes a great leader. We'll talk about things that I've learned from being a firefighter, working with some great leaders, and how they can help you to become a better leader too. Just like firefighters need a good leader when they're fighting fires, your team needs you to guide them. So stick around and discover what I've learned about being a leader that people can rely on. Like most people, I've been around leaders all my life, but some have made a bigger impression on me than others. In my own experience as a leader, these things that I'm going to cover are the things that I feel are the most important. So number 1, leading from the front. A real leader is there with the team, doing the work too, not just telling others what to do. It might not be all the grunt work, but it's the work that allows others to do their jobs safely and effectively. You need to be in the trenches. You need to be seen on the ground. You need to be seen where people are doing the work. You need to be actively involved in that work as well at times, because it shows that you know what you're doing. Sometimes you also need to be part of the crew doing the work. You can't always be on the outside. Sometimes it's really good to get inside the crew or the group of people that you're working with on a project and get down to some hard work. Just controlling the work is not enough. People like to see that you can walk the walk. Get in there and be part of the team. Do the grunt work. Secondly, you need to set the example when you lead from the front. You need to still act your level, as in you need to be up here as the leader, but you need to do things the right way so that people can see how it's supposed to be done. You can use those opportunities to demonstrate stuff and teach stuff so that your team is learning while you're in there working with them. And quite frankly, you'll find it's good fun to every now and then get in and get dirty. It can sometimes be boring being the leader and getting in with the crew, in our case, blacking out, mopping up a fire, lighting a fire line, whatever it happens to be, can be a really nice break from being the person in charge of everybody from time to time. Also, it's about earning respect. Respect comes when you show people that you care. And when you get in the trenches with them, when you get onto the coalface and all those little expressions, you show people that you care enough to be there alongside them. In my case, it's pulling the hose out. It's getting filthy. It's often a laugh. And that's good because laughter between people actually builds camaraderie. And of course, being a firefighter, it's about feeling the heat, not just sitting in the air-conditioned cab, pointing at things that you need done. Number 2 thing, leaders need to keep cool when things get hot. You must stay calm and think clearly when everything is changing super fast around you. So staying cool under fire is about showing these cool, calm traits when those changes arrive. You need to be thinking ahead. You need to be aware of what's happening, not just right in front of you, but also the big picture. In the case of the Fireground, we can be aware of what the crews are doing right in front of us, but we need to know what the plan is operationally. We need to know what's changing on a different sector. So in a business perspective, that means knowing what your project teams are doing, understanding what the leaders in your business who work for you are not controlling and what's going on in their sections. It's really important. Now, sometimes it means you have to step back and look at what's going on and then go back in again and get into it. But it's important that you stop from time to time and do that. And I would also say, remember to breathe. Sometimes we're going so fast and pumping and blood's moving around our body, but it's also important to stop and take a couple of breaths for a minute and calm down when things get hectic. You also need to do some rapid decision making when you're staying cool under fire. So my preferred method, of course, is to stop, assess, plan, then do and debrief afterwards. Now, debriefing can wait a while, but when you've got to make a decision quickly, it's absolutely essential that you stop just for, even if it's a second, just stop and think about what's going on, look around, assess it, then come up with a plan in your head and give instructions. Now, sometimes that can take less than 20 seconds. Other times, if it's a bigger plan, it could take days. But either way, you need to follow a process when you're doing rapid decision making. Never react to a situation. Always respond. When we respond, we stop, we assess, we plan, we do, and we debrief. Don't assume everybody when you're making these rapid decisions is going to understand why. That's not important. Again, they might not have all the picture that you have. They don't know what's going on outside of their world. So some of them won't understand it. Some of them will grumble about it, but that's just part of making decisions. And make sure that you've got the right intel so that when you make your decision, you're not basing it on false facts. Make sure you ask questions. Make sure you get on the phone, get on the radio, whatever it takes to get in communication with your team and your team leaders to get what you need to make the decision before you implement something that could be dangerous or, in case of business, bad for business. You also need to keep up effective communication amidst the chaos. Think before you speak. Take a second. Don't just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. Draw a map if necessary, or a diagram or a flowchart, whatever it's needed to show people what you want to do and how you want to get there. Now, you might not fill in all the points in between A and B, but you can put in the basic ones in between, and then people can add in extras where they know there needs to be extra steps. You can also make a list of bullet points of things they need to think about. And as always, remember span of control. 1:5. One person can control 5 people. Once you get above that, it becomes exceedingly more difficult to actually keep control as a leader when you've got a lot going on. Number 3, look at the big picture. Make sure that everyone on the team knows what you're trying to achieve. The goal should be clear to all. Everybody needs to take shared responsibility in reaching a goal or achieving a mission, depending on how you want to look at it. It's everyone's fault when we don't reach the goals that we've set. We are working as a team. So therefore, working as a team means every level of leadership, right down to the bottom of your organization, it's their fault too, as much as it's your fault, when you don't reach goals. We fight as a team. If you try and fight as individuals, it just doesn't work. Teamwork is absolutely essential, no matter how small the teams are. And also accept that you're the leader. As the leader, you will take on more responsibility, but the blame is shared by you when people below you don't achieve or do something wrong. And you must be ready for that, which brings me to my next point, which is show accountability and ownership. If mistakes are made and it's your fault, say it's your fault. Work out what you did wrong and don't do it again, hopefully. You share responsibility with everybody else, but take ownership of your own mistakes and do better next time. And of course, you need to empower others. You need to give the other leaders and the other members of your team kudos when they do something right. If they came up with the decision, if they gave you the information that was important, then when you get to a debrief or whatever, say, oh, thanks to Joe or thanks to Mary, because they're the one that actually saw this happening and were able to feed that back to me. People like to be recognized for what they've done. If you stand there and say, oh, I did a great job, when in fact all the information was coming from other people and all you did was agree with it, that's not really about being a leader. That's all about yourself. And people don't like those sort of people. Make sure you share tasks amongst your team. Don't just keep hitting the same people all the time. It's really important that everybody gets a chance to be empowered. Make sure you get feedback. And I think it's really important you make everybody responsible for something. Even if it's a small chunk, everybody has their responsibility. On the Fireground, you might have someone lighting up. You might have someone standing behind them with a hose blacking out. But the person lighting up should be responsible for lighting up safely. And the person with the hose should be making sure that the fire doesn't come out of where the fire is supposed to be. All these jobs are important, and the person doing them should be responsible in what they do. And it's the same in your business. You need to make sure that everybody has a chance to actually take responsibility for a section of the work that's being completed and get a win under their belt. Number 4, talk clearly even when it's tough. The importance of being able to talk so that others understand you, especially when they're under pressure, is absolutely unbelievably important. And the key thing here is not just talk, it's talk so others understand. You can say a lot and no one will understand what you're saying. where people understand they can get what they're supposed to be doing. So aim for clarity over complexity. We've all heard, keep it simple, stupid, the KISS principle. It's so powerful, especially when you're under pressure as a leader. Slow down when you're speaking. If you speak too fast, you get too many words going and no one can understand a word you say. So slow down and speak clearly and take your time. Make sure you can see people are understanding. You can see it in their eyes when they glaze over or whatever, if you lose them. Breathe. Take a breath. Give people time to think about what you've just said before you launch into the next section. And have a look at your plan. Make sure your plan is clear too, so that when you're expressing what you've written down, that it's easier for you to actually speak about it. Sometimes you can use non-verbal signals. On the Fireground, we use hand signals to indicate things, such as putting your hand above your head to indicate you want water on, and waving your hand in front of your body, like cutting the air to say water off. All these little signals actually allow us to communicate over greater distances without radios. Now, obviously, radios are better, but sometimes you need non-verbal signals to make things work well. One of the best non-verbal signals that you can use is actually to smile. Just smile when you're talking to people. Don't look so stern. Don't have that resting face that I have. Make sure you think about what you're trying to do. Yes, there's time to have a serious look on your face, but give people a smile and realize it. This is serious, but it's all good. Respect the chain of command. There is nothing worse, especially on the Fireground, and in a business, quite frankly, than someone who doesn't know their place. This is super important. If you're not in command, if you're not the officer in charge at that time or the lead of the project, then you need to step back unless it's about safety. There is nothing worse than someone who is in a lower command position going straight over your head to talk to someone who's in a higher command position. It's disrespectful, number one. Number two, it's not their job. Their job is to feed up to their leader. In our case, a member of a team would feed back to their crew leader, and then the crew leader would feed back to the sector commander. It's there, as I previously talked about, keep things as clear as possible. But also, it's there to filter, because sometimes people in different positions don't understand all of what's going on. They only understand sections. So respect the chain of command. Unless it's an emergency, talk to the persons directly above you. Now, I know in some businesses that's an issue, but if that's the problem and you've got a bottleneck there, then you need to talk to the person above you, but do it properly, do it professionally, organize a time to meet. It is not the time to do it when everybody's under pressure. In our case, we have firefighters talking to their crew leaders, talking to their sector commanders, talking to operations, talking to the incident controllers. And that's the way it works. And it works well as long as we follow it. When firefighters start telling sector commanders what to do, it's an issue and people don't like it. People have generally earned their position within a business or on the Fireground. They're not just there out of good luck. They've spent years learning what they've learned to move up the ranks to where they're at. So we need to show people respect. Always respect the chain of command. It is super, super important. Number 5, teamwork makes the dream work. The old one. Leadership isn't just for one person. It's everyone's job to help the team succeed. You need to build trust in your team. Now, teams change from time to time. You need to get people into your team, get to know them, and build on those connections as you get to know them. In our case, we might go to a fire. We work with a new team. We might not see them for 6 months, but if you can get to know at least one person really well on that team, when you come back together again, it works really well. They might be on a different team. So that connection is there, and it allows you to leverage that respect you have for each other to get their team to follow you if you happen to be the leader at that time. So the connections you build and through the trust actually allows you to lead further down the line because people get to know you better and see you work when they're working with you directly. You need to put the team objectives over your individual goals. If the team loses, you lose. It's simple. Hardly any job is done by one person alone. You're lying to yourself if you think you're the hero. We are all there for each other. Sometimes we get the opportunity to look like we're the person, but realistically, The team is the hero. Nothing is achieved alone. And remember, good leaders support their team members in difficult times. When people are having trouble, when they're injured, when they're having mental problems because of stress or anxiety or depression. A good leader is there for those people. Now, they can't always help, but even just pointing people in the right direction to get professional help is really important. But also on the Fireground, for example, if something goes wrong, the leader needs to be there to support their team members, their crew. It's really important because they need you then more than any other time. They're already feeling bad enough. Having your support will help them lift themselves out of that sort of situation they're in and move on and keep moving forward. Number 6, loyalty matters. It's important to put the team first, as I've mentioned, and loyalty keeps a team strong. You need to build a foundation of trust. You must be loyal. Being loyal to the people above you and below you is tough. If you've got someone above you in rank or on the food chain, as I always like to say, you need to be loyal to them too, because they need your help to implement the plan. And then you've got people below you who also need your loyalty. So they need to know that they can trust you to look after them. So make sure you're always building on this foundation of trust. But I believe that that foundation of trust is built because of the loyalty you show both ways. You need to show unity when in crisis. When things go bad, unity is literally the only thing you've got holding together. It's what gets firefighters out of bed for the 4th time that night for a fire call. The fact that one person is going, I'm going. It's simple. We go because we're loyal to each other. And the bushfires of summer 2019-20, we went for almost 122 days straight of fires and having teams out on the Fireground. And it got to the stage where the only reason you went is because you knew someone else was going. You were tired. You were exhausted. You really just wanted to lay around and do nothing. But because other people were going or other brigades were going, you went to support them. And that's how we got through that with so many volunteers on the ground. A lot of people worked very hard, but we did it for our communities and we did it for each other. There's a ripple effect when you're dealing with loyalty. If you show loyalty, others see it and it passes respect on. They see you being loyal and they choose the same path. In our case, it's what makes the rural fire service strong. We really respect each other. And yeah, we grumble at times and we moan at times. And it's not always perfect. But in the end, that loyalty underlies everything. So in today's episode, I've dug deep into what makes a leader from my perspective, particularly in the high-pressure world of firefighting. From being there with your team in the thick of things to staying cool under the intense heat, we covered it all. Leadership isn't just about giving orders. It's about setting an example, earning respect, and making sure everyone's aligned on mission. We also talked about how clear communication is key, especially when the stakes are high. But remember, leadership isn't just a one-person show. A good leader knows how to be part of a team and puts the group's goals ahead of their own. At the core of all this is loyalty. It builds trust and unity, especially when things get tough. It's the glue that holds the team together, and it's what can make or break a mission. Whether you're fighting fires or leading in your business, these principles can guide you. I hope you've picked up some useful tips that you can start using right away. Remember, being a great leader is more than just giving orders. It's about earning trust and leading by example. So go ahead, run towards the flames and become the leader in your team. Catch you next time on the Leadership in the Line of Fire podcast.